Hi there, Johnny here from Jonny Lipsham Studios.co.uk. Welcome to Studio One 7.2. So in Studio One 7.2, we have a fantastic set of new features and workflow improvements. And I'm going to review basically my favorite ones out of all of the new features. I'm not going to cover everything because if I cover everything, the video will be way too long. So there are other features that won't be covered in this video that you can certainly check out at your heart's content. The release notes will be available and you can go and take a look and see what is in the release notes and then go and explore Studio One 7.2 for yourself. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the brand new instrument, which is called Subzero Bass. And this is what it looks like. It has the kind of triangle interface that you may be familiar with some of our other instruments that we've added, like Cinematic Lights and Deep Flight 1 and Lead Architect. They've all featured this kind of concept. So this should be familiar. You should know what this does. And then if you click on this arrow up here, you get some more controls for being able to manipulate different aspects of this instrument, much like you do with the other instruments. You get this. So this is very, very useful indeed, like the other instruments. But the sound of this instrument is very, very different. This instrument, I would say, is particularly useful if you are an EDM producer. But even if you are not, if you are more into kind of cinematic kind of sounds and soundscapes and that kind of thing, then there are presets here that you can select and you can manipulate, and you'll get some really nice sounds out of them. It is a bass instrument, but as I'm going to show you in just a second, you can use this to play chords as well. Some of the presets, you can't really do that. They are monophonic sounds, but most of them are polyphonic, which means playing chords on them is pretty easy. So if we go up here, you can see that there are these folders, ambience, attack bass, effects, low drone, and pulse. And all of these have different sounds, different features, and different functionalities. Some of them have arpeggiator and repeater enabled. Some of them don't. So I'm just going to pick maybe a couple from here. So we'll take this one to start with, and we'll just play some of the sounds. Now, some of these sounds are, like I said, they're particularly useful for playing chords as well as sounds, and they sound actually quite dark, hence the Sub-Zero kind of aspect of it. They sound quite dark and very, very deep, especially low down. For example, like that. But you can play them. You can play them quite high up as well. So this particular one is quite nice for playing chords on as well. So let's try a couple of others. Some of them also have different patterns to them. They have some panning maybe. And like this one has a different pattern to it. So very, very useful indeed. I've just realized why I have a piano sound underneath that. It's because I have Notion open at the same time. That was dumb. So There we go. Now we don't have to, now we just have just. There we go. This one's quite nice as well. Again, this one is really, really great for kind of sounds, you know, cinematic sounds, that kind of thing. So let's go and take a look at some of these pulse ones real quick. I'm just picking these at random. That one's quite nice. Let's try this one. Yeah, I like that one. And that one's got an arpeggiator on it, which is quite useful. That's nice. That's got a nice little pulse to it. So there's plenty of other presets for you to check out. Some of the effects ones are quite cool. I'm just going to grab just one of those. Yep, like that one. Alright, so there's plenty more where that came from. Feel free to check this out and play about with it and try some of the presets and make your own even. I would recommend. Alright, so we're going to move on. We're actually going to open up another song for the next feature. And already you may even be able to see a couple of features that are just basically right on display here, which I will come to in just a second. But first of all, let's open the mixer. And we're going to open up the tuner. And what we will see with this tuner is that we've got some new modes here. We've always had this strobe, but we also have this little mode switch. Now this is handy because what this now opens up, which is brand new in the tuner, is not only the string and the pitches for the strings, but if I click on this box here, it says custom tuning. So I can open this up and you'll see that there are tunings for guitar, for bass, for banjo, and mandolin. And there are absolutely a good number here. There's like 30 or so new tunings, and you can just select whichever one you want. And then you can tune your guitar to those particular tunings, whatever they might be. Very, very useful. There's drop D. Is there dadgad in here? No, that's the only one that I think that really is actually missing is dadgad. That'd be nice to have dadgad in here, but it's not in here currently. And then there's 5-string bass. Let's see, is there 6? Yes, there is standard 6. And then, of course, there's banjo, Chicago tuning for plectrum. And then there's mandolin, open G. So there's plenty of different options here for whatever instrument you have. There's no violin, it's just guitars, bass, banjo, and mandolin at the moment. So no stringed instruments yet. However, if you do need to tune your violin, you can just turn this mode off and it would just work as a standard chromatic tuner. So That is the new updated tuner, now called Tuner 2. Okay, so we will stay with this particular song for the next thing that we're going to look at. Now you'll notice at the top here in the timeline ruler that we have some different markers. So we've got this marker here, and this is the normal locator markers, which we're used to seeing. But if I go up to the top here, you'll also see there's a marker at that end and a marker at that end. And you'd think, are those start and end markers? No, they're not. What these are is post and pre-roll markers. And I'm going to show you how those work. So you may recall that there used to be some features and functionality in the record panel, and you'd have to open up that record panel, either go into view and record panel, or Control Shift and R, I think it was. But now you can click on the cogwheel here and it opens it up. So the record mode, the instrument loop record mode, and note repeat, we're all familiar with, but this is brand new for Studio One 7.2. So what this does is this makes hands-free recording an awful lot easier in Studio One. So now we have adjustable post-roll and the ability to use pre-roll, post-roll, and auto-punch combined. So these have been consolidated into the record panel, which, as I say, is available from this guy here. And you can disable, enable, whichever ones of these you need. I have all of these enabled. So let me show you how this works. So at the moment I have pre-count set to 2, pre-roll set to 2, and post-roll set to 2. And you'll see why I have that in just a second. So I have the cursor set at the very start of the song here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record just into this section here. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this to work. So I do want my click on. Oh, we had the other track record enabled. Let's try that again. Let's get rid of that. And let's try that again. This time we'll try not to record over the cinematic lights track. Actually, let's turn off the click. We've got click and record though. Now you will notice there that it punched in and punched out without me having to touch anything, but also with the post-roll enabled, with this set to 2, basically Studio One stopped after 2 measures after recording. So this is really handy because if you are recording in a separate part of your studio space or even in a separate room, you can set this up to allow yourself a lot of pre-roll and then also a decent amount of post-roll. And what will happen is Studio One will stop by itself. So you won't have to rush back in to stop recording and have to run between different parts of your room and stuff like that. So this makes hands-free recording very, very useful indeed. So that is the punch and pre-roll settings right here in record panel. This is very, very useful. All right, we're going to move on to the next thing, staying kind of with the recording kind of theme. We've got some changes to the chord track, which are going to be very, very handy, very useful. So if I open up the chord track, the first thing that you're going to see is we now have Roman numerals available in the chord track. So how do you set this? This is very cool. So if I select that and then I open the inspector, you will now see that we have the chords in the inspector and we have this chord display option. So when I click on this chord display option, you'll see that we have regular, we have numbers. That's the Nashville number system. So let's have a look at that. So now you'll see that all the chords have changed to Nashville numbers, which basically means using Arabic numbers instead of the Roman numerals to represent the chords. But you'll also see, if I go to, if I stick with the Nashville numbers, we've also got these options underneath here. So we are currently in default. Let's do small caps. And now you will see that for the major 7 chords, we have capital M-A lifted up slightly. And you'll see it there as well. And then we've got a lowercase mi for minor. So let's go to minimal, and that makes those smaller. So we've got a smaller M for a smaller capital M for major. But if I go to symbol, we now have symbols for major and minor chords that you'd find basically jazz musicians are going to be much more familiar with the triangle and the minus sign for major 7 and minor 7. So this is a very cool new addition to the chord track. And of course, the chord display will show these as well. So if we go view, and if we go chord display, and then if we just hit play here, you'll see now that we have 1 major 7 and then 6 minor 9, because we're in the Nashville number system. So let's go to our Roman numerals, and that's what that looks like. Or we can just stay with the regular with the symbols. So this is kind of what I personally am much more familiar with letter names for pitches, for roots, and that kind of thing, and then the symbols. So this is probably the way I'm going to use it. But if you're a Nashville numbers person, then this is a very, very useful addition to Studio One. So this will show up in the global chord track, in the editor, in events, and the chord display, and of course also inside the score editor. So if you have the box checked in the score editor for showing the chords, you will now see what you have set here in the chord display selector here. So if you've set the Nashville number system, you will see that in the score editor as well. It's very, very useful. I love this feature. And in fact, I've been wanting this feature for a very, very long time. All right, so the next one is also a feature that has been requested for a very long time. So let's go over to the other song for this one. So we're back over where the Subzero Bass is. And in this track at the top here, I'm using Subzero Bass, but I'm using this Cinematic Boss preset, and you'll see why in just a minute. Because it is one of those sounds where you can play bass notes and chords, and it sounds absolutely delightful. But I'm going to show you this new feature that we have with the cursor. So if you see the auto follow button here, you'll see that there's a little arrow underneath it now. So if I click on this and hold, you'll see that we now have some options. We now have turn over, continuous centered, or continuous left. So turn over is the default. Basically, this is what we have had in Studio One for a long time, where the page effectively turns over when the cursor goes past the end of the screen. It turns over kind of like a page does. But we now have continuous centered and continuous left. So I'm going to show you continuous centered first. So I'm going to position the cursor round about there. And then I'm just going to hit play and watch what happens to the event and the timeline underneath the cursor. That sound is just simply epic. I love that sound. But that's very, very cool. I know a number of people that have been requesting this for quite a long time. So I'm very glad to see it here. Let's check out center continuous left. So if I go back over to the start of the song, watch what happens here. So I personally think that this is a fantastic new feature to be added to Studio One. It gives people different viewing options for how the cursor behaves, how the screen behaves. It's been heavily requested for a long time, and I'm very, very glad that we now have this in here to give people the view options that they want. And it's great that we have it as an option, so it's not a permanent change. You can set it however you feel like having it. If you want it centered, you can. If you want it on the left, you can. And if you want the traditional page turn view, you can have that as well. All right, so, excuse me. We've also made some improvements to the plugin manager. So managing multiple plugin formats such as AU, VST2, VST3, and clap plugin formats has become an awful lot easier. So we now have format handling options inside the plugin manager. And this is an option where you can disable duplicate plugins installed in multiple formats. So for example, if you have one particular plugin that's both a VST2 and a VST3, you can disable one and favor the other, whichever one you prefer. And it's basically just disabled on startup, which is that option that I will show you in just a second. In addition, the browser has been updated with color coding of plugin formats, making it easier to identify specific formats or redundant plugins. And I'll just very, very quickly show you that. So if I go over to the effects tab here, you'll see that these VST3 icons are now blue. And I'm not showing any VST2, so you're not going to see any VST2 plugins in this list. And then the native ones just say effects. They don't have kind of a color underneath them. But I'm only showing VST3s here. So that's what the VST3 looks like. It's blue underneath and it's white for VST2. So if you are a VST2 person, then you'll see effects and then VST2 in white underneath. So it's dead easy to see. So let's go check out the plugin manager. So here we go, plugin manager. And now you'll see we have this new plugin format priority box, and we've got this checkbox, hide duplicates on startup. Now, this is by default checked. So if you have default plugins, which duplicate plugins, I'm sorry, which I do, I have a couple of VST2 plugins that are also in Studio One as a VST3 format as well. So those can be hidden if you want. And of course, you can change which plugin format is favored. Obviously, native plugins are always going to be the first choice preferred. So you cannot change that, but you can change the priority of VST3, VST2, and clap if you have clap plugins installed, which I do not. But if I did, I could put them in any order I like. So I can just grab this and move it up here. I want to see VST2 first or VST3. And that's how those are prioritized. And you'll see here that VST2 is unchecked here because it's not a plugin format that I am prioritizing. I am prioritizing VST3. However, you will they are still installed, they are still available, and if I need them, I can go get them. But as you can see here, I'm not showing the VST3, but if I check the VST2 box, they may well appear. Let's see, are they appearing? No, I may need to rescan to make it appear. So I'm going to uncheck that for now. But anything that is installed in Studio One, you will see here, but anything that you don't want to prioritize will be deprioritized. It's not that they won't show up, they'll just be deprioritized. And there's all of my vendors and of course the block list here. And you'll see here that there's this button that says hide duplicates. Now, like I said, this is checked by default, but you can uncheck this. And then if you decide later down the line that you want to hide them, you can hide them. Now, does that uninstall them? No, it doesn't. They are not uninstalled. They are just hidden from view. Okay, so that's the new plugin format priority and the hiding of duplicate plugins on startup. And you'll get a notification to say that they've been hidden. I'm going to show you that in a second because we've got some improvements there as well. So let's close that and let's click on here, and you will see, in fact, they're not showing because I have already checked them. Okay, I did have some new notifications here, but I've obviously clicked on them, and because I've clicked on them, they're not there anymore. But I did have some plugins that were duplicated, and when I did that, it gave me a notification. One of the other new notifications that you will get is a notification that there is new content available in Studio One. So if you're a member of Studio One Pro Plus, and there is a new sound set or a new instrument or something else that is new that is available for downloading, you will see that in the notifications. And the cool thing is there will be a button in there that you can just click to install. You don't have to go to the installation dialog to install new stuff. If you see in notifications that you have a notification telling you that there is something new, you can just click on install. And it will do it. It will just install that, whatever that new content is. So that is a great little improvement there. Okay, so let's go back to the other song. And we're just going to mute this track for now. And you'll see that the new thing that we have here is some improvements to how patterns show in Studio One. In previous builds of Studio One, parts and patterns pretty much looked identical. They looked the same. But now patterns have this look where you can pretty much see the exact pattern that you have recorded overlaid on top of the parts container. So this is very handy so that you can see the difference between a part, which is this one at the top here, the cinematic lights, and a pattern. So this is very, very cool. So if I just double click on this, here's this little pattern that I've created. This is not changed, but what has changed is how it is viewed on the event container at the top there. The other thing that's changed here is we have this auto zoom. So now you can have this zoom to the same zoom state as the arranger view. So now in Studio One, the piano roll editor, the audio editor, and the pattern editor all now can have the same zoom state as the arranger view. So the only thing that doesn't have this currently is the score editor, but everything else now does. All the other edit windows now have this same auto zoom toggle button. So you can have it basically have the same zoom state as everything up here, which can be really handy if you want to basically have a one-to-one view between the arranger view and the part or the pattern or the piano roll editor. Can be very, very handy in being able to see what's what in the editor and have a frame of reference with the timeline at the top there. So that's a very cool new feature. So that is that for the improvements to the pattern editor and the auto zoom. So I'm going to show you one last little thing here. And that is range selection improvements. So when I select a range, let's just close the edit window altogether. You can now see that it's much more obvious that this event here is now selected. Same with this, same with this. They go a much more obvious change of tone of color. Now, if I go back over to my other song here, you'll see the same thing here. Let's go back to that other song. So if I was to duplicate this event here a few times, and then let's say I want to range select, let's say just these ones here and turn them down. You can see now it's much more obvious which of these events are selected and which ones are not. So now I can turn these up. And I can do the same with these three here. I can hold shift and just click these ones. And I can turn those up as well. And so now they're all kind of roughly at the same level. And if I decided I wanted to range select those and duplicate those, I can do just as easily. And I can see which ones are selected and which ones are not. It's very, very cool. I like this feature a lot. It's going to make seeing what I've selected and what I've not selected so much easier. And it means I'm not going to necessarily be editing the wrong thing when I'm doing some crossfades or I'm doing some automation on a particular event. I can make sure that I'm only doing what I want to do on the particular event that I want to do. So I hope you have found this video useful and helpful. Thank you very much for watching. If you have, please do hit that subscribe button and the like button as well. And if you've got any questions or comments, please do leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.